Attention race fans, sit back and strap yourselves in. It's time for the Winner's Circle Race Report with your hosts, Doug Jenkins and Scott Parrott. Hello race fans and welcome to the Winner's Circle. The date is May the 1st rather, at the Godfrey Motor Speedway. We're starting out the action, seeing action from the Pro Stock Heat Race number 1. Pat Ryan took the early lead in the event. He was followed by Scott Conway in car number 2 and Rodney Reed in car number 77, the orange Camaro. Rick Rhodes is working his way through the pack in car number 00, and he just moved into third place, with Pat Ryan falling back to second, Conway taking the lead. Conway would hold the lead until lap number 5 when he popped a right rear tire. Conway losing traction coming off of turn number 2, lost the lead to Rick Rhodes, and that's all she wrote. Coming down for the checkered flag, Rick Rhodes took the win. He was followed by Pat Ryan in car number 6 and Jim Bell in car number 17. Conway holding on long enough just to spin coming out of turn number 3, which you can see in the top of the picture. Once again, it was Rick Rhodes winning heat number 1 for the Pro Stocks. In the second Pro Stock heat race, the early leader was Jeff LeBob in car number 29. Wes Wyman in car number 11 was quick to follow him around, and in third place was Mike Newton in car number 68. LeBob held the lead on the white flag lap, but confusion reigned as Troy Nager got into the side of Dave Jones and popped a right rear tire as he was challenging for second place. Nager went to the pits. Dave Jones continued in second place, got a run coming down the backstretch, and with LeBob's left front tire all askew, Jones took the win, followed by Jeff LeBob, and Steve Myers Sr. slid across the start-finish line in third place. Dave Jones, the winner of Pro Stock Heat number 2. In the Pro Stock Miller Dash for Cash, there's no contest, with Dave Jones leading it all the way and picking up the win. Rick Rhodes second place. Steve Myers Sr. came back after that spin to finish in third place. And that sent us on to feature time. And Dave Jones won the coin toss to either invert the field or start him straight up. He won it, and they start straight up according to their finishing positions in the Pro Stock Dash. After one start that was no good in the Pro Stock feature, the second time they came around, they got the green flag, and this time it stood as the field went by the starters line. Rick Rhodes took the lead coming out of turn number 2 down the backstretch, with Dave Jones falling into second place and Jim Bell falling back to third. Midway through the feature, Rick Rhodes was still your leader. Dave Jones was putting the pressure on something fierce. Back in third place was Jim Bell, but Steve Myers Sr., who was working his way through the pack nicely, got caught up in a 3-car melee, and that not only knocked the suspension out of kilter, but also took care of his radiator. So Myers was done for the night after that incident. By the time the white flag flew, Troy Nager in the black car number 8 with the pink interior had moved his way up to third place, and he was challenging for second place with the other 8 car of Dave Jones. But he couldn't quite get the job done. As they headed down the backstretch, Rick Rhodes had a 3-car length lead and chose to run the high side all the way into the checkered flag. And the way they finished, Rick Rhodes was your winner, followed by Dave Jones, Troy Nager, Jeff LeBob, and Wes Wyman comes all the way from the back of the pack to finish in 5th place. Troy Nager started second to last row in the feature race. And there is your winner, Rick Rhodes, for the Pro Stocks. Modifieds and late model action coming up. In the first heat for the IMCA Modifieds, last week's feature winner, Bill Rexing in the white number 59, started outside of the front row, outside of Steve Myers Sr. in the car number 1A. As they raced off of turn number 2, the 2 cars were still side by side, but Meyer got the jump going into turn number 3, and he slid past into the lead. On the last lap of the first heat race, Bill Rexing was busy holding off Mike Mudd for second place, and in the meantime, Steve Myers Sr. came around to pick up the win. He was followed by Bill Rexing, and Mike Mudd took third place, although it was close. It was no more than a foot separating Bill Rexing and Mike Mudd. Last year, Mike Mudd ran every week at Macon Speedway in Northern Illinois. He's a Springfield area native, and this year he says he's going to be a regular, or at least a semi-regular, at the Godfrey Motor Speedway. And once again, there is your winner, Steve Meyer Sr. in the 1A car. In the second IMCA modified heat, Jake Seats took the lead on the opening lap and led it all the way, making it look easy as he raced down the backstretch ahead of George Carroll. John Stanton finishing third in his first ever ride in an IMCA modified. That's the car Troy Vernetti ran last year, and John Stanton picks up third, George Carroll second. And taking the win was Jake Seats in the 77. As the IMCA modified drivers got the green for the feature race, the front row came down for the start. Terry James and Marty Kopp racing down the backstretch, and the lineup was based on their featuring positions last week. It's based on a point inversion scale, and since there was only 1 week of racing, then the 10th place man in points went to the front, and the first place man went to 10th on the lineup. And Terry James, Marty Kopp were 9th and 10th in points. Marty Kopp led the first few laps, with Terry James falling back to second and Dave Jones in third. By lap number 8, Jake Seats had moved in right on Marty Kopp's bumper and started challenging for the lead. Dave Jones moved back to third. Jim Werner Jr. was in fourth, and Mike Mudd was in fifth at this point. And those top 5 were the ones that started to pull away from the rest of the field. Just a few laps later, Jake Seats got the run coming off of turn number 2, shot down the backstretch ahead of Marty Kopp, and slid into the lead going into turn number 3 of that lap. Marty Kopp fell back to second place. Mike Mudd had gotten around Jim Werner Jr. He was up to fourth place, chasing down Dave Jones for third. As the cars took the white flag, Jake Seats had a half straightaway lead over second place Marty Kopp. But the battle for second place was really starting to heat up, with Mike Mudd and George Carroll right in there as well. But when Jake Seats came around to take the checkered flag, he picked up his first win of the season, followed by Marty Kopp, Mike Mudd, George Carroll, and John Stanton. And there is Jake Seats in the winner's circle. Late model action coming up. In the first late model heat event of the night, a very scary moment happened when car number 78, Roger Aker, broke a right rear suspension piece, and he got hard into the wall, wound up flipping down into turn number 3. The good news is he banged up his wrist a little bit, but other than that, he was perfectly fine. And as you can see from the pictures, the next day the car was virtually destroyed. However, the drivetrain and a couple of other pieces were good enough to salvage. He'll be buying another car. I talked to him Monday night, and he's already had one purchased, and expect him back out on the track in about 2 or 3 weeks. Roger Aker, a very lucky man, and he's going to be going racing here in about another 2 weeks or so. As we head back to the racing action on the last lap, Randy Cordy still led the race. Matt Taylor was running in second place. His father, Dick Taylor, was running in third. If those two go hard at it and don't give each other an inch. And your winner was Randy Cordy, followed by Matt Taylor and Dick Taylor. In heat number 2, Joe Ross Jr. took the win, followed by Rick Bear and Bobby Dietz. The battle for third place was intense. Bobby Dietz leading a pack of 4 cars around, with John Seats, Ed Bauman, and Brian Ader all within striking distance. But the winner once again was car number 25, Joe Ross Jr. Joe Ross Jr. was also victorious in the trophy dash, and he was followed by Randy Cordy and Rick Bear. And that set up the feature race, with Joe Ross Jr. calling the coin toss right. The field was started straight up. As the late model feature got flagged green, Joe Ross Jr. led the field into turn number 1, with Randy Cordy on the outside. Matt Taylor collecting third place right on the start. And after 1 lap, it was Joe Ross Jr. and Randy Cordy still side by side. Cordy making a very strong run last Friday night at the Godfrey Motor Speedway. A lap 1 incident with Ed Bauman, Brian Ader, and Terry Miller in the 12 car sent all 3 men to the back. And on the restart, Ed Bauman started his charge through the field. Bauman had already passed 5 cars by the second lap of green once the competition had resumed, and he was working on Dick Taylor. Bauman in the blue number 1 and Taylor in the yellow 24 car. and Bauman was one of the few drivers making it work on the low side. In the meanwhile, Joe Ross Jr. was pulling out to a straightaway lead over second place, Randy Cordy. With just a handful of laps remaining, Joe Ross Jr. was working through lap traffic when the car of Matt Taylor hit the wall. Terry Miller slid to avoid him, and as he was avoiding Matt Taylor, you could see Joe Ross Jr. slam into the side of Terry Miller's car. That left some question whether or not Ross's car could make it to the end, possible flat tires and such, but luckily nothing of the case was found. However, Matt Taylor's night did end on the hook after a very good run. On the restart, Ed Bauman had worked his way up to third place, and by the last lap, Joe Ross Jr. was feeling the pressure from Bauman as Dick Taylor moved back to third place. Ross came through turns number 3 and 4. He was looking the checkered flag in the face, and he picked up the win. Ed Bauman coming from the back to pick up second place. Dick Taylor was third. Bobby Dietz was fourth, and Randy Cordy finished in fifth place. Joe Ross Jr. from Mechanicsburg, Illinois, picking up the hat trick this evening, picking up his heat, the dash, and the feature win. He'll be back to try it again next week. Stick around. We'll get the Tri-City Speedway report right after this.
The Great American Low-Fat Pig Out is a day-long celebration of the foods that may lessen your risk of cancer. In other words, you can pig out on peaches or perhaps on poultry. In fact, the list of foods you can enjoy is it's endless. So be a part of the American Cancer Society's Low-Fat Pig Out. Because if you don't start eating right, that could be all, folks.
Welcome back to Winner's Circle. I'm Eric Harnetto reporting from Tri-City Speedway, Saturday, May 2nd. Action in the Pro Stock Division got off to a rough start with a pair of accidents in Turn 2. Making his way through the wrecks to pick up the win in heat number 1 was Dave Jones. He was followed by Don Patton and Rick Rhodes. Heat 2 started out the same way with wrecks on either end of the track. Mike Newton led the first 7 laps, but was passed on the inside by Tom Radicek for the win. Jeff LeBob finished in third. The feature started out like the heats with a multi-car crash in Turn 1 involving Don Patton, Rick Rhodes, and Mike Thornton. On the restart, Dave Jones beat Radicek into Turn 1 and started to stretch his lead. The fight for third was a good one, with Mike Newton being challenged by Jeff LeBob and Max Kirkendall. And on the white flag lap, Leaders caught the back of the field, and Radicek actually had the lead for a moment going into turn 1. But the inside groove would open up for Jones, and he would race on for the win. Radicek finished 2nd, Newton 3rd, LeBob 4th, and Kirkendall 5th. After the break, we'll be going to Highland Speedway.
Hey Tracy, you wanna go smoke a joint? Did you do your English assignment yet?
That's right, you can either change the subject or...
Most kids first try drugs because of peer pressure. That's why there's DARE,
No need to take
the
drugs.
National Drug Education Program that teaches kids to resist peer pressure and refuse drugs.
That's because it has killed so many people, and I don't want to be one of them.
But without your support, there can be no DARE. Your contribution will help the children in our community to never take drugs.
And welcome back to the Winner's Circle. We're at Highland Speedway, also on Saturday night, May the 2nd, and we're seeing action from the Sportsman feature race. In heat action in the Sportsman division, Steve Bobinet and Brad Lodicki were your heat winners. Randy Perkins won the dash, and here in the feature race, Steve Bobinet in car number 16 is looking to make it 2 in a row, and he's just out of your picture now. He's got a straightaway lead over second place Oscar Fry and Brad Lodicki that you see battling for second place right now. And Roger Foney's back there in fourth place. And there's the white flag for Steve Bobinet, who's been on a tear this year. And there you see the battle for second place going into turn 1 as we speak. Down the back, stretching into turn 3 and 4. Coming around to take the checkered flag is Steve Bobinet. Bobinet was followed by Oscar Fry and Brad Lodicki. Lots of action in the street stock division on Saturday night. Kurt Richter won heat number 1. Heat number 2 went to Terry Isaac. Clay Bauman won heat 3. Leon Rakers won the semi. And on lap number 9 of the feature, trouble broke loose on the front stretch, car 27 flipping. However, the driver was okay. Back to action. And the feature was won by Alvin Knoll. Rick Johnson finished in second place. Brian Belong finished in third. In the modified division, Ron Sensel took heat number 1. Randy Cordy in the 00 car was the winner in heat number 2. Mark Faust, there you see him in the 51 car, won the dash, and he came back to win the feature race. Mark Faust won over Dennis Sellers and Randy Cordy. After we finish this race, we'll be going to St. Charles Speedway.
The Great American Low-Fat Pig Out is a day-long celebration of foods that may lessen your risk of cancer. In other words, you can pig out on peaches or perhaps on poultry. In fact, the list of foods you can enjoy is very it's endless. So be a part of the American Cancer Society's low-fat pig out. Because if you don't start eating right, that could be all, folks.
And welcome back to the Winner's Circle for the final segment from St. Charles Speedway. We're looking at the Modified Sportsman feature. They're combining the IMCA-style Modifieds and the Allied Limited Sportsmans. In the first heat, Leroy Haney took the win, followed by Randy Hafer and John Bardall. Second heat, Jake Seats won over Marty Kopp and Terry James. Jake Seats came back to win the Trophy Dash over Marty Kopp and Terry James. And there you just saw Jake Seats pass for the lead in the feature race, and he went on to win the race over Marty Kopp, Leroy Haney, John Hobson, and Steve Meyer, Sr. Once again, this was Sunday night, May the 3rd, and it starts their Sunday night series of shows throughout the summer. In the late model division, Jim Durbin took heat number 1. Randy Cordy was second. Mark Voigt third. Heat number 2, Jeff Simmons took the win over Tony Izzo Jr. and Gary Parker. The dash went to Jeff Simmons over Jim Durbin, Tony Izzo Jr., and in the feature, Jim Durbin took the win, followed by Tony Izzo Jr., Jeff Simmons, Darren Forrest, and Steve Shive. Closing out today's show will be the Street Stock feature, and in earlier Street Stock action, Steve Cucarola won heat number 1, followed by Larry Martin and James Holt. Stacy Krause took heat number 2 over Tim Barrett and Steve Maisel. In the dash, Cucarola doubled back to make it 2 for 2. Larry Martin was second, Tim Barrett third, but Cucarola couldn't pull off the win in the feature. He wound up resting against the front stretch wall. And Jeff LeBob wound up taking the win over Stacy Krause, Larry Martin, Brad Smith, and Tim Barrett. As we finish up today's show, I'd like to thank some of the people who made the show possible, the video suppliers for the show. And those were Studio 11 Productions out of Highland Speedway, from Tri-City Speedway, Put It On Video, and from Godfrey and St. Charles Speedway, Pick a Flick 2. So thank you very much to those sponsors. Well, next week on the Winner's Circle, more of the same. We'll be going to Godfrey, Tri-City, Highland, and St. Charles Speedways. So until then, for Eric Arnotto, this has been Doug Jenkins. Talk to you next time on the Winner's Circle.